should be live because
we're live now.
We don't want to keep the people waiting, do we?
We are live.
We definitely don't want to do that.
There we go.
Well, hi, Bobby.
Hey, David.
And welcome to everybody. Let's see what's going on in the chat. We got Spin. Hello, Spin.
Spin is here.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm a little bit late. I was late to meet Bobby tonight and started the stream a whole minute late. What's going on with me, man? I want to know,
Indeed. What is going on?
What is going on with
Hey,
Logan?
FP.
So
Phoebe is here too. FP.
FP's here? Why is
And
my
Phoebe.
chat? My chat keeps disappearing on me.
Jasmine is here.
Jasmine, hello, Jasmine. I'm so sorry. My hair is not good. I know it. Please
Completely
don't lie.
disheveled.
Jasmine, we have a relationship that's built on trust. Hi, Phoebe. Phoebe's here. Hello, FP's here. Hello. I can finally see the chat. So, Jasmine, don't lie to me. We don't want to jeopardize our good relationship that we have, right? So wait, let's go full camera for this, right? Like, I think we can agree that I need a haircut. Look at that. Look at this side. Oh, come on. Please don't tell me, oh, your hair looks fine. If you say that, Jasmine, you're going to break the trust. JT's here. Hello, JT. Welcome. And yeah, nice to see everybody here. Happy to be here. Happy to see Bobby. And yeah, I hope everybody's doing good. Bobby, I didn't really deeply hear your response to how's it going.
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that at what level do things have to be bad enough for somebody to say, okay, things aren't good?
Well, we always,
that's good.
well, look, pain and suffering is a relative scale. So
Right.
someone might look at your problems and be like, that's nothing. You can't compare pain. And the reason that you cannot compare pain is that everybody has a different level of coping skills, right?
Right.
So I don't think it has to be, there's no quantitative method for measuring if you can legitimately complain or not. You just go right ahead, Bobby. We got you. We're here. We're here to listen.
I was just curious because in the vast majority of instances, you're always just like, yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Unless something is like significantly wrong. And then it's like, well,
Yeah.
at what point do you decide that like, okay,
Right.
I guess it's just, I don't know. Anyways, that's not the topic for the day.
Well,
No.
one of my favorite jokes is when somebody says like, how's it going? And I sort of don't want to, I want to make light of it. I'll say, well, I can't complain. And then I say, well, I actually could complain, but who would listen to me? Which is sort of a funny
Right.
way of saying like,
Who would listen?
are you asking me socially acceptability level of how are you? Or do you actually want to know the answer to how are you?
Right.
Right.
So in America, it's like, hey, how are you?
Right.
Like you say that to everybody. You say that at the grocery store. You say that to your parents. You say that,
Right.
you're not actually asking in a strange way.
Mm. Well, yeah,
It's just a hello.
It's the socially acceptable
Right.
thing, right? And so we always want to live in a world where, we sort of participate in that, right? And so I think it's expected of us.
I would have no problem if I said, hey, how's it going? And somebody was like, it's messed up.
Yeah.
No, I'd be
Well,
like, okay.
on
Let me
on this particular stream, right? Like if I ask you, how are you? I really want to know, because if you're not well, Bobby, we got to talk about it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just saying.
For sure.
So are you well enough to continue, or do you got some dirty laundry you want to air?
I'm fine. I'm totally fine. I was just curious.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing to be curious about. And again, I think it all depends on each individual and their level of coping skill,
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, I'm glad to see that the majority of people here are doing relatively well, because seems JT has a nice ice cold Moretti in a chilled glass. Wonderful. FP has a stressful week, it seems, the last full week before summer break.
Ooh,
And
that's a
all right,
big
well, get
week.
through it,
Well,
FP. Get through it. And
FP,
Jasmine says it's all
you teach
good.
high school
He teaches high school,
or
yeah. Yeah.
high school? Okay,
He's like a band teacher. And so he's got a
nice.
really nice group of kids that I think they've all graduated since when I met them, but they're a good
Right.
group of kids because he's their teacher. He really
There
cares.
you go.
FP is a really nice guy, really really good guy, and my star trumpet player. So just saying. Um, okay, and JT fixed the DAW. That's also great. No stress at all this week. Okay, well that's good. Phoebe's doing cut downs all day. Yeah, ready for a beer too. Well, go for it. Yeah, Phoebe has been doing a lot, I would say, of library music. And for those that
Mm,
don't know, the format for doing broadcast music is you have like a long version, which could be anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes, and then you do a cut down of 2.5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, a 15 second, a 10, and a 5, like a stinger, basically. So this is kind of the format. So once you've written it, then you got to sit there extracting all the cut downs, right, and making them work
right.
at exactly those moments, right? Yeah, so I've been there, done that. It's but it's a fantastic revenue source for young composers, especially. Um, so yeah, um, yeah. But
So
what's on
speaking
deck?
of young composers, um, let's. My question for the moment is, well, not. It's not really a question; just more of a comment. I know that YouTube, in general, is where a lot of people go to learn, right?
Yeah.
So forever, people would call it YouTube Academy. I learned how to do this from YouTube Academy. The problem with YouTube Academy is that it's unfiltered,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get a lot of information that's flat out wrong.
Absolutely.
You can get information that you misinterpret, understand
100%.
incorrectly, and you don't have another person to
That's
kind of
right.
be like, yeah,
And
you didn't get the message.
if I can
So
quickly add this
go ahead.
in, you also cannot rely on ChatGPT for verifying the info because it's wrong.
Oh, fuck no.
And
Yeah,
and it's
ChatGPT is the worst thing to verify info
well,
on.
okay, or
No.
Claude or whatever you think. It's like
Any LLM,
I
they're all the
I
same.
I
They're all the
was
same.
asking sort of advanced, jazz arranging and chord progression techniques, and it just gave these totally wrong answers. So in advanced
Right.
jazz techniques, it's telling me, well, a 2-5-1 is a great turn. It's like, dude, like even tritone substitutions, which substitutes the typical 2-5-1. The 5 gets substituted for tritone above, which
Right.
is why it's called a tritone substitution. But it actually uses the same tritone. So, for example, if you're in the key of C and you do D minor 7 to G7, in G7 your tritone in that chord is B and F. And in the tritone substitution, which is D flat 7, you get D flat, F, A flat, and technically it's C flat, but the enharmonic equivalent is a B natural. Anyway, it's not the point. Did I get that right? Yes, I did get that right. So C flat is the enharmonic equivalent to B natural. Anyway, the point is the actual two notes are exactly the same in the tritone substitution, which is why it works in the first place. Anyway, it didn't even know or even recommend or even.
So
So it's like,
when it comes to large language models, you will quickly find out once you are a domain expert in any domain, you will quickly understand how limited
yeah, it's
it
terrible.
is. That's true for everything.
I was
And
shocked as
unfortunately,
to how.
yeah.
Yeah, I was really
So
quite shocked, and
right.
it didn't even say, for further study, you should, check out Giant Steps or, Kind of Blue or, Modal Jazz or whatever. Anyway, so yes, there is a big problem. And
Right.
because literally
So,
anybody can go on YouTube and say whatever they want.
right.
And, because we all know that if you want to make a beautiful string quartet in the style of Beethoven, the best tools you can use is a salt shaker and a pepper shaker.
Right.
I can say that and put it on YouTube, and
You say
someone
it with enough confidence.
could, with enough confidence, and some kid could be like, "I don't understand." Yeah.
Yeah. So how is that problem solved?
It's very simple.
Can it be solved?
We have to bring community notes into expertised fields. So we have to basically divide YouTube into various, let's say paradigms, universes. And so one could be music. And then from within that, you'll have music production, you'll have songwriting, you'll have production, you'll have composing, and then you'll have trusted sources. So if somebody is talking about, gives false information about a sample library, and Christian Henson and Paul Thompson and a bunch of other amazing people out there, and maybe not even sample makers, but users like Tom Salta and Jesper Kidd and, who Hans Zimmer even, makes a community note saying, actually, that's not true.
Right.
Right. I think it's a pretty simple solution that you just take from Twitter and throw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's my easy solution.
Right.
So
how do you're right. I see it when it comes to it's harder when it comes to art. Because, for example, there was, and I think you've seen at least the Chris Lord Algae video, I think it was by Waves, where they would ask, rate these mixing tips from 0 to 10. And I forget who I watched right after that, but they basically said the exact opposite. It was mixing at volume. And Chris Lord Algae said, you have to mix at 0. And the other guy was like, I have switched studios because I couldn't listen to it loud enough.
Yeah.
I need to hear it. So it's harder when it comes to more subjective things. I think for medicine, it's easier. When people give medical advice.
We were just earlier talking about UVI, right? UVI workstation.
Yeah.
And we also have had conversations about Venus theory, right? Now, I'm not going to talk shit about him, no matter what you might think of the guy, but he is a shill for the industry, and he's a shill for UVI. Because, I actually went and bought their whole sonic bundle because I actually trust Venus theory, Cameron, whatever he likes to be called. And because I do think that whatever you think of him, he's smart, he's talented, he's built libraries, lots of amazing libraries. On both Piano Book and for Contact and on UVI. He has a library on UVI.
Right.
So I trust him. I trust his expertise, right? So I watched his review of their World series, World 3 bundle, whatever it is, where they literally, one of the largest collections of world instruments, and I love world instruments, right? So I literally feel like I got scammed, by Cameron, because this was just less than a year old. Now, a library that comes out in the year 2025, what would you say would be a minimum requirement that must be there? I would say it has to have round robins and key switches.
I was just about to say round robins, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for a
wonderful. So we agree on this. Yeah. Well,
100%.
There's not a single round robin on the entire library. I can't find anything.
No way.
And what is the worst part? Their brand new Orchestral Suite 2, which I also bought. Again, watching his review, none of the percussion has any round robins. So if you were to make a military snare drum part,
wow,
you literally have one single note and you get the dreaded machine gun effect. So, but this is something that community notes could solve. right?
told you.
So I could community note Venus theory, not in a mean way, but just say, I'm David Logan, composer, 30 years of video game, AAA soundtracks, blah, blah, blah. And I'm here to tell you 100% there are no round robins on this particular library. And I felt I got scammed. Now, the good news is there were enough amazing libraries, but what I wanted to use the library for, the main purpose that actually was the whole reason I bought the Sonic bundle,
right,
was for that world library. And it's just a hunk of shit. Now, some people could argue, well, there's multiple articulations. You can switch the keys back. It's like, dude, that's not how round robins work. It's just not how it works. And not every one of them has a round robin, right? So now, are the samples individually like amazing and good quality, well recorded, amazing performances? Absolutely. But I don't know, I've been working with the library now for like 3 or 4 days. I found one round robin on like a Nordic fiddle of all things. And it's like, I don't know, wasn't even like well programmed. Like it's not smooth, So like the first 3 round robins and then the 4th are like,
oh shit, yeah.
Just like, oh my God. So I was profoundly disappointed by this live. It's 100% not usable. Like,
right,
compared to the World Series of Native Instruments Complete 15 or 26 now, I guess they're calling it. It's a hunk of shit. Like, it's actually bad. It's objectively bad.
yeah.
It's just objectively bad. So,
Wow.
so that's I think we need a system like that, because I literally bought it because I completely
Right.
on a, let's say, a professional level. We talked a little bit about his political things, right? Punishing the whole piano book community because of his politics not agreeing with other people's, right? So leave your politics to yourself and don't punish a whole community because of your politics. I think that's wrong. But the point is, I do
100%.
respect him professionally. I respect his talent, his experience, his skill, and that's the whole freaking reason I bought the library. So if somebody at community noted it ahead of me and said, don't buy this library if you like round robins in your samples, you should not buy this.
Right.
I wouldn't buy it.
Right.
Look, why is it so important to me? Because look, most people, they're like basically sort of, just playing everything, right? So they're playing, a nice little chord progression, on their keyboard, and you just you don't notice there are no round robins, right? But what's my main thing in life? I'm a drummer and a percussionist. So for me, I don't have any actual sounds loaded, but I'm going to be like,
right. Yeah.
Right? I'm going to be making a nice ostinato, and I'm going to be, I'm going to be repeating things over and over, and I need my round robins, damn it. That's my point.
Right.
So yeah.
So yeah,
that's my quick solution.
That would be an interesting solution. They got rid of the downvote, not the downvote button, but they got rid of the showing of the numbers.
Yeah.
I wonder how much people complained about that, because they would say like that was the quick way to figure out, like, if this guy tells you, hey, you just have to rewire your light like this, you could look at it and be like, no, that'll probably kill me. Maybe
and what happens if you follow advice and then you freaking electrocute yourself?
Right.
Right.
Well,
because look, it's the equivalent of what happened to me with this library. I got an electric shock. I was super eager and excited for this World Series 3 from UVI. And it's absolutely, I can guarantee you I will never use it professionally on any project, or privately or personally. It's a useless library.
That's such a painful feeling.
It's the worst feeling.
And then you're just like,
and
it'll just be there.
It's why I believe in the hacker community, and it's why I believe we need them. Because this shouldn't happen. We shouldn't live in this world. There should be like, a demo you can download at minimum.
It's really strange to me that I've only come across a very, very small number of companies. VSL, I think, they are the best when it comes to trials and demos. You can just send them an email real quick and they'll be like, yeah, sure. Here's a 30-day trial of anything, UJAM will give you, I think, 7 days or maybe 14 days. I've tried a couple of their things here and there. Found out that they were not for me whatsoever. It was the Hans Zimmer drums, I think. But yeah, how is it that this industry is just like,
I don't know,
no samples, no demos, no nothing?
Yeah, just for FP.
I can somewhat understand with Contact, but not when you own your own sample player. Yeah. Just UVI could easily do it.
UVI what? Could easily, yeah.
UVI could easily give you trials.
I just quickly wanted to respond to FP because the point is, FP, it was a person who I respected their opinion professionally, and the way he was playing everything, the sounds were good. The sounds were great. I was like, this is amazing. I can't wait to use it. I just assumed there were round robins on everything, and they're literally on nothing.
I hate to do this to you, David, but do you think that was
my fault?
Your failure in, the story of the War of the Worlds?
The which one?
War of the Worlds. Orson Welles.
Yeah, sure.
Right. There were two groups of people. One group that had it playing and were like, oh my God, Martians are here. The other group turned the dial and was like, well, if Martians are here, the other stations will have this too.
Right.
Yeah. So
and a lot of people killed themselves, threw themselves out of buildings.
Right.
When they heard the first radio broadcast. Yeah.
Right.
And it's part of why the FCC was created, in fact, was because of that radio broadcast, where literally people thought the world was being taken over by aliens and they were committing suicide and shit. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So was I super excited by the whole prospect? Yes. Did I jump the gun? Yes. Is it my fault? Yes. Do I blame anyone but me? No. But what I'm trying to say is what sort of pushed me was...
I would blame Venus Theory.
Yeah. I watched not just Venus Theory, though. I watched a couple of others. So it's just that nobody plays instruments the way that I do. And the way I do is with lots of repeated rhythmic phrases where I got to have the round robins. Or, by the way, I'm loading the World Suite 3. I'm installing it now. It's not installed on this particular computer. But if you want, after I'll play you and I'll explain why I think it's such a...
Right.
It's like, and literally nothing has a round robin. I checked like every single thing I tried. No round robins. And the worst part is their orchestral library, the percussion. How can you have percussion in the year 2026? It was just announced, like not even 10 days ago. It was just debuted and it's on a special offer, 129 euros. How in the year 2026 can you actually put out a library with a patch called classical snare drum?
Oh, wow. And
not have a round robin? Explain that one. Somebody explain that one to me. So, yeah, there's none. I'm going to actually demonstrate it to you because it's actually...
That's just insane. It's hard to even imagine that somebody could get away with it.
Well, that's the thing, right? And so, yeah, it's literally unimaginable.
How about when you're trying to learn anything and you're just... I think community notes is a great idea, but wouldn't community be just as effective if you had somebody? And isn't that part of the problem in today's age? Like, for example, we were talking about this with Emanuele, that when you hire a composer, right, for your job, you're getting that composer's experience, and you're getting his team's experience, the people he works with, the musicians he hires.
That's right.
You know, there's a lot more to it than just reading a few like sentences or seeing a couple of videos or seeing some examples. Learning is not just that initial act of absorbing some information, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's
how was it at Berkeley?
Say again.
Right? How was it at Berkeley?
How was what?
Learning, like
it was amazing.
The experience of going back and forth with with not just the professors, but with the classmates, right?
Yeah.
So you had that whole group of people.
Listen, the Schillinger House of Music, which was originally Berkeley before it was renamed to Berkeley. This guy who invented this entire music education system, and it was literally perfected over decades and decades and decades. And by the time I went there in 1990, it was like down to a science. And you had your entrance exam and you would get placed in terms of like your knowledge of music theory, your ability to sight read, your ability to perform, your ability to improvise. Like they literally, there was a number system, right? And it was based on, like I think it was like sight reading, proficiency on your instrument, overall musicianship and improvisation or something like that. So, and if you had 4 9s, you were just like, you were like Charlie Parker, like you're the best. And if you were like all 0s, you were crap, And so,
right.
I got all 3s on my very first try. So I'm still proud of that. So, that's quite good for your very first try. Huh?
Okay.
No, that's literally a third. It's 33% of the way.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, on my first try, and you can get retested. You can do it. You can go get retested every semester. You can go for another test. I never did because it wasn't important to me. It's just a stupid number, but it's mandatory. Right. So based on all that, you were then placed in which classes, right? And then you had a written exam, which tested all your knowledge of theory, right? And at that time, I had no theory, no training of any kind. So I literally went into Harmony 1, ear training 1, everything was 1 right. As far as my composing skills. But as a musician and performer, I was actually quite good because that's all I'd ever really done professionally up until that day, right? That I wanted to be a composer, right? So yeah, it's so I guess, but here's the point. Look, I created a community on Facebook, right? I have a composers group on Facebook, but the problem is there's no, so for example, it's just the whole thing has turned into a bit of a dumpster fire. Like there's over 20,000 people in there, but it's so weird. And it's like a lot of people just advertising lessons and I can't enforce it. I was
about to say the incentives are fucked up, right? Yeah. Because everybody who goes onto YouTube, we're all basically watching commercials, right? Like these are all commercials for something, correct, for somebody's brand, for somebody's product, for something. At some point, they're not there making videos to teach you about mixing. They're there to eventually make a mixing course money to sell it to you. Right. That's ultimately we all just decided that instead of watching TV shows, we're going to watch commercials all day long. Okay, fine. But with those incentives so skewed towards the person just trying to figure out a way to keep you engaged long enough to earn your trust and to sell your product, don't you think, how important is it for somebody who wants to learn how to become a composer, a mixer, a painter, whatever you want to become, to find somebody outside of that, like outside of just YouTube, to find somebody and to learn from them?
So I'll respond in a couple ways. First of all, just going back a few steps before I answer well, first of all, it's very important, I think. I think it's very important. But I guess going back a few steps, I think that eventually there are certain sources that just rise to the top, right? Like Rick Beato, I really find the guy to be unbelievably disingenuous, like his
Mm.
fake laugh and
Okay.
you know, when he's interviewing rock stars and he's acting like a
Right.
teenager. You know what I mean? Like he's with Brian May and and this completely fake
Yeah.
smile. Like I just find it so disingenuous, him as a person. However, you cannot deny how smart the fucking guy is. He's smart. And
Rick
he
Beato knows
knows
his shit. Yeah.
he
He's been doing
knows
it
his
for a
shit.
long time.
He knows
Sure.
his shit. And when he does a YouTube video explaining how a compressor works, it is spot on. And you know you can take that to the bank. That's my
Right.
point. So
Right.
as his personality, like he's not a bad guy. Obviously, he's a nice guy. I'm not like shitting on him, but I find him
Right.
to be incredibly disingenuous overall, especially when he laughs and you know, like as if like the sort of like when he's interviewing Sting or Stuart Copeland and like the laugh of like, yeah, right, right, right. Like as if like, oh yes, I'm also a multi-platinum selling artist that has toured the whole entire, like it's so cringe. And I don't think he
Mm.
realizes how cringy that is, that he laughs
Yeah.
along while he's going, right, right. Like as if, oh yeah, I've been there, done that, totally, you know, and he hasn't. He hasn't, you know, like, you know, he's successful in his own right, not taking that away from him. But here's the point. When he says something about knowledge, you can be guaranteed that it's correct and factually accurate and fact checked and everything. And this is what I really like about him. And he calls out the douchebags for who they are, like the New York Times music critics that
I've been
right?
meaning to watch
Recently,
that video. Yeah.
you know, like Eric Clapton was moved from the top 10 down to 35th greatest guitar player of all time. Like the same Eric Clapton that I know from Cream, that guy,
Right.
you know, and whatever, dude. So yeah, I think, and now going to your other point, right? So know your sources. If there's just like some random guy, hey guys, all right, so let's get that salt, pepper, and pepper shaker, and we'll make classical music like Beethoven. You know, like don't listen to those guys. But it's hard to know. So this is why I think that if there was like some kind of a voting system that was partly based on community notes and fact checking, and you could literally keep a score of like almost like an Amazon review system, so that, you know, for example, if you got Berkeley even as homework assignments to just literally assign, take 5 minutes of this, Rick Beato video, analyze it and fact check it. And then literally you have a grading system for how many inaccurate. Yeah. And like the Lord Algae brothers, Chris, I guess, is the one who's doing the Waves plugins and everything. And then like on his live stream is like, yeah, man, plugins are never going to be as good as the real thing. It just sounds better on an SSL. It's just like, well, then why the fuck are you making your CLA, SSL channel strips and then, selling them to people? And he's wrong, by the way. Sorry, CLA. I think you're wrong, because I don't think it matters anymore. I don't think that, like, okay, maybe, yeah, if you're mixing on your level, maybe you can make an SSL sound better. But to an average guy who's out there,
Right.
Now he thinks, oh, I better buy the real hardware SSL channel strips because they sound better because CLA said so. It's like, shut the fuck up, man. Sorry, I hate these guys. I really do. Not hate. That's a very strong word, but yeah. I feel, look, guys, anyone who's listening to me, please be advised. All plugins are the same, sound the same, do the same thing, get the same results. It's just a question of, do you like the way the functionality of the fab filter
workflow
over the UAD system?
Right.
Do you like the unison technology of UAD hardware over tracking with a real console to real tape? So in the end, it has nothing to do with the equipment. Now, to a point. Okay, so let me give you the point. So when I reunited with my beloved, my betrothed, my Super Jupiter over here, I remember with Emanuele, we were doing this kind of electronic track, and I said, oh my God, this would be perfect for the Super Jupiter. And I made this really cool Actually, it's a original from the year 1998. A bass patch that one of the first bass patches I ever made on this Super Jupiter, and I saved it on my card. And then 30 years later, I loaded it up and I got it back again. And he even said, he's like, wow. He's like, it sounds so big and so warm and so fat. That's the only word he had to describe it. And so that has to do with the equipment. However, it also had to do with the synth programmer 30 years ago that was sitting there hour after hour, just nudging everything ever so slightly and then boom, saving it. Now, here's the point. Could I have spent the same number of hours in Serum and gotten something just as fat? Yes, absolutely. And this is my whole point, that maybe CLA can make a real SSL sound better than the plugin version of the same SSL channel strip. Maybe he can, because he knows the hardware intimately, the way I know this hardware intimately. So I'm going to get a way better result on this physical hardware. But in the end, you guys, it doesn't matter. What matters are the hours. Just write it down above your bed. You want to be great at something? Ask yourself a question. Have I done the hours this week? And so, how many hours did you put into your craft? How many hours did you put into practicing the piano? How many hours did you put into ear training? How many hours? Because that's what it takes, you guys. And so I'm going to argue from, 1988 when I first 87 when I got serious about music, up until maybe, probably 10, 15 years ago, I was every single week, I would do no less than 65 to 70 hours a week, and some weeks were 80 to 100 hours, man, like hardcore. My LA years, oh man, I got sick, physically ill because of how many hours I was working and how badly I was eating, and I smoked cigarettes and,
I just drove by Tommy's Burgers yesterday. And I told my wife, I'm like, this is the Tommy's that Dave must live right around here, because this is the Tommy's Burgers
that
he used to go to at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Was it the one in Koreatown by chance?
Yeah,
exactly. I used to go there because I lived on Venice.
Yeah.
I lived on Venice Boulevard. So that was my Tommy's. Yeah. So that's the actual Tommy's. And actually, Yas and I went there. I think it was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, because we were just working all night in the studio. And I just looked at him. I'm like, you want a Tommy's burger? He's like, oh, yeah, let's go. Anyway, look, you know what? Did you put the hours in? If you put the hours in, doesn't matter what piece of crap plugin you're working with, you're going to make everything sound great. You don't need to spend 1 penny on a plugin, because literally now that the UAD, I don't know what they're calling it, Discover Bundle or whatever they're calling it, their 11 plugins, their top 11 plugins are now all free.
And I would say even the plugins in Logic, in Cubase,
100%. Just look at Phineas
and Ableton.
Look at Phineas, right? Who's the brother of Billie Eilish. And he said, our first album was just 100% everything stock in Logic. Every sound you hear, every plugin, it's all stock Logic. And it's a great record. It's a great record. So yeah, the whole, these people who are peddling this stuff on you, they're like drug pushers. They're no better, They're just trying to get you to buy their shit, Anyway, so, it's just, I think that if we had some kind of a system that we could rank and then catalog the mistakes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I remember Christian Henson said, every composer that he knows that has made it has had another composer that brought them in,
That's true. Even me. Yeah. It's true.
And I feel like that is so important in any field also, to not just rely on, because you tend to get into this feedback loop when it's just you and yourself, right? You will start to have biases, and you will find things that confirm those biases, and unless you have somebody like David Logan, you can easily fall into that trap. And I think it's so important that we remind people of that, that tell people, hey, you can't just watch something,
That's
no
right.
matter what it is, right? Whether it's music, especially if it's medicine, please do not listen to anything from YouTube. Go to a real doctor, um, or anything in between.
Listen,
If you want to,
community is so incredibly important, and it's why I started my Facebook group. Unfortunately, like all of Facebook, it's become a dumpster
right,
fire. However, I believe in mentorship. I've always had a mentorship or internship program ever since I was, just David Logan Music on my own. Emanuele, I was his mentor, and now he runs our studio.
right.
So I believe in interning people and giving people opportunity. And yeah, but you know what? I mean, yes, wasn't brought in as a composer. I submitted my demo reel and got hired by a music company, which, you know
I just
what?
mean,
That is a gray line. It's a gray line, right?
and don't quote me, but he said every great composer has a composer that has like helped them. That's really what it was.
Well,
That was there to guide them, support them, mentor,
yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. I guess I'm not a great composer because I didn't really have that. I was brought in by other composers because I got a job fair and square and earned a salary as a composer for other
Well, there you go.
composers that were busy and needed help and needed another writer on the team because
Right.
they had so much
But it was a
work.
composer that helped you, right? That brought you in.
Brought me in, but based on the merit of my demo reel. That's the point.
Right. I'm not saying it was
Well, no,
nepotism,
because it
as JG
happens. It
says.
happens through nepotism. It happens through
Of
connections
course.
where someone, doesn't really earn it. They just sort of got
So,
connected.
when it comes to nepotism and nepo babies, I'm of two minds. One of them, obviously, everybody hates anybody who gets a free pass. But nepotism, for example, in Hollywood, right? It gets that person in the audition, but they still have to prove themselves to the director, who had to prove
No, come
himself to the
on, man.
producer.
Do you really think that Johnny Depp's daughter has any talent of any kind?
Okay, I'm not saying every single one of them,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
some
and
people,
some
some
nepo
people,
babies even say it's
I
harder
don't know
for
about
us than it is because we have to
right.
really,
Okay, those
poor
people
thing.
can go to hell, but there are some who genuinely
I
have
guess
talent and
okay.
have.
Let's. I think
You know,
we're losing the point. So, I think that look in at the end of the day, um, my point is that everything I achieved, was based on my demo reel my whole life.
right.
Every gig I ever got was by submitting my demo reel and competing against other composers, starting with Pitfall 3D, right? So nobody brought me in for that. So now, quickly, I just got to respond with some really big orb love. It always sounds weird when I say big orb love. But I got to do it. And
Right.
since we can't get that, the only way we can get this is this way. This is for Jasmine and for Phoebe because they made some extremely nice comments.
Mm.
I have been a good mentor also to Phoebe over the years, for many years, in fact. David Logan, greatest mentor of all time. Very thankful for all the knowledge you've given me. I'm choking up a little bit. And Jasmine saying, David, you are a real life Jedi master. She just knows exactly what to say because I'm just like a
Wow.
Star Wars guy.
Wow, that
So
was
thank you both for
yeah.
those beautiful, lovely words because I care. I care. I love people in general.
But it is important to have a mentor.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
or at least
And
somebody, even if they're not officially your mentor.
And the second company that I was a staff composer, and by the way, literally responded to an advertisement like looking for a composer. And I submitted my demo reel and I got this gig at a company called Think Music in Toronto. And Asher Ettinger and Tony Kozanek, they were a writing team on this Disney series, Ready or Not. It's how I got my first Disney credit at the age of 26. And
Nice.
but the thing is, I got the gig legit. You know that I turned them down at first. I was like, oh, that's great. But you know what? I think because I had this other potential job offer, and they were just like, yeah, well, that's okay. Good luck to you, man. And then the next day I called them back. I'm like, hey, is the job still available? Because you know what?
Wow.
They were like, yeah, man, come down, let's talk. Now, it just started off as a job, but man, over 1 year and 6 months, yeah, they were so good to me. They were so good to me. And I learned so much from them about the business side of it, about not so much about composing. It was more about just how to function as a working composer, in the industry, And I was talking with the director. I was talking with the producers on the show. I learned the most important lesson of my entire career from John Brunton. He was one of the producers on that TV show. And I remember it was the four of us sitting in the mixing room, and we were just talking something about, deals and negotiating. And John said, look, fellas, I can teach you the art of negotiation. It is literally simply one word and only one word, and only has two letters. The word is no. Always, and I mean always, make sure that you are in the position that you can say no and walk away from the deal. You have 100% of the leverage if you can do that. Because if the other person has the same, ability to say no, then fine. You didn't get what you wanted. It wasn't the right deal. And if secretly you were not able to say no, well, then you just screwed yourself, right? But if you are in the position to say no and the other person is not in that position, you're going to get exactly what you're negotiating for. And I'll never forget, that was one of my best lessons when I was living in Hollywood and dealing with, large deals and, big money and negotiating on contracts and points and, all this kind of stuff, man. So yeah, it is important. It is important. They became my mentors. Yes, absolutely. Right. Both of those guys became my mentors, but it didn't start that way, I suppose. But it did wind up being that way. So yes, it's and I guess, you know what, Bobby, the big problem now is with the social media world that we live in, everything is noise. The year that I applied for that gig at Think Music, the internet commercially in Canada was like not even born yet. Like it was in the same year. I remember I got commercial internet in 96. Okay. With like the 11K dial-up modem. So like everything was done personal. You went personally. You submitted your demo reel. You sent it in by mail. You went to the interview. There were no Zoom meetings and stuff like this. It was all done personal, face to face. It was based on the energy that you felt in the room while dealing with that person. And that's gone. And so now the mentorship purpose of me setting up my Facebook group on for composers on Facebook was in the spirit of mentorship. I even created a mentorship program where young composers could, have mentors that volunteered. I was the only volunteer to mentor. There's like one other guy who was like credentials weren't even that great, So yeah, I believe in it. I care very much. And I care about sharing knowledge, and it's, and it's sadly like the whole, and here's the bigger problem now with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I'm so sorry, because every generation says this about the younger generation, that they're lazy and they're not motivated, but I just don't see it, man. And I've been teaching more than 15 years now, and it's like a whole generation I've been teaching. It's just a steady downward curve of knowledge retention, of ability, but most importantly, of work ethic. I don't see it, man. I just don't see it. I don't see anybody that was working as hard as me ever. And when I do see it, it's like shocking, and it blows me away. Also, the amount of internships that I have offered, and nobody ever takes me up on them, ever, So Even when I first offered you, like, to get involved in Orb, you were sort of like, I'm really busy right now. And, it's like people are just not as interested. And especially people are not interested in working their way up. And
Right.
usually everybody thinks that, an internship with David Logan will be like unicorns and rainbows. And they don't realize, like, if you really, like, with Phoebe, I mentored Phoebe. She was never an intern, right? It was just a
Right.
mentorship. Um, so, but, Manuele was like a legit internship. He worked for free for quite a while before he ever got paid. And it's why he's running my studio today. It's why he's
Right.
the big
Right.
boss, if you
But
will.
do you think that's a result of the loss of the social contract, that nobody
Partly,
really feels like if I work hard, I will be
partly,
rewarded? When people look and say to themselves, there is no way in my lifetime, a 20-year-old is looking and saying,
right,
there's no way in my lifetime I will make enough money to own a home.
right. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
this. Yes, Bobby. The short answer
that
is
is
yes.
defeating coming right out the door.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is a hard yes. I do think that's part of it. So, what's the solution? I mean, that's really, really tough to say.
Yeah,
It's
that's
hard to know.
probably something I wouldn't want to say on the stream anyway.
What's that?
I said that's probably something I wouldn't want to say on the stream anyway.
Ah.
So, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's JT said something, and I just want to. Yeah, millions of kids are knocking themselves out in a bedroom studio because they can't find a mentor to get into a room.
it's true.
Maybe millions of kids shouldn't be knocking themselves out in a bedroom studio thinking that they will become a composer, a professional composer.
I mean, but
You know,
who
there
are
are
we to?
filters still, and I think the ones that go and find a mentor will be the ones that have put in that little bit of extra effort. I once read an article about how just a little bit of extra effort puts you ahead so much of everybody else in your group,
That's right.
right?
That's
Millions of
correct.
kids are sitting around in their bedroom not finding a mentor. That one kid that goes and finds one, he has put in just a little bit more effort,
That's right.
and he will be higher up. So yeah, I think it matters. I think all of this matters. I think the amount of effort, the amount of hours,
I
all of
agree.
it
I agree.
matters.
And but the thing is, Bobby, it's just not there anymore. Nobody's there. Nobody's willing to put that in. Nobody's willing to work for 3 years without pay, 20 hours a week part time to get to the position where Emanuele is today, where he earns a full salary.
But
He
how many
can,
people can in today's world when rent is so
yeah,
expensive, food
but
is so
dude, come
expensive,
on, man. The majority of young people today live in their parents' basement. That's the
right,
reality, right? They can
right,
do it. They have the resources to do it because they don't pay rent, in fact, because they can't afford to. Look, my sister, okay, who, she's a medical doctor, okay, and she has two daughters. And we were just talking the other day, catching up, and she said, yeah, we had to renovate and dig out our basement, to build an apartment for our eldest daughter, and our younger one now lives upstairs, and neither of them are ever going to leave this house ever in their lifetimes. And I just thought that this is the weirdest shit I ever heard. Like, says who, but that's what she said, because she's a very protective parent and maybe overprotective.
mm,
But the point is, I think she was more pointing to the fact that my city, Toronto, is literally
right.
just become a city for the rich. And so she's a medical doctor. Her husband is a retired high school teacher now on pension. And they're surviving in a completely gentrified part of Toronto that was the brewery. It was where the old brewery, or the junction, sorry, the old railroad, like where the old railroad used to join in, and it was all like working class and, these little tiny houses, and so they're surviving, but no way I could ever afford to live in Toronto again. Not possible. Average
Yeah,
housing prices are over a mill now, right? So
yeah,
I
same in
can't
LA.
afford that, you know? So yeah, it's just become, yeah. So my point is young people, I think, are nihilistic. and without hope,
Right.
you know. And so I think that's why they're like, yeah, why would I work for free for 3 years, with the possibility of working for Orb Soundworks one day and then earning a full income, which is what Emanuele's done for himself at Orb after 9 years of having a relationship with me, building the trust slowly, slowly. Well, he had it. He had the dedication. He had the patience. He had the willingness to learn. He had the willingness to work hard, right? But he's 31, 32 now. So, so a 20-year-old, no, they're not interested in putting in the effort, but that's the only way they're going to get ahead, because people of my generation who are actually in a position to make sure a 31-year-old like Emanuele is getting a full income so he can live in Stockholm, eat, pay rent, and live well. For that to happen, you have to really impress the shit out of me, and prove to me beyond a reasonable or shadow of a doubt that you can handle it all. And he can, and he did, and he's loyal, and he's dedicated, and he works, so he earned
makes
it.
a good point. It says there's no appreciation for real knowledge anymore. You can get cheap and free info on YouTube very quickly. It doesn't matter if it's not correct. What really matters is it's
That's
readily
right.
available.
Well put, Jasmine.
Again, that's why it's important to go find somebody. I
think I have a point that needs to be made here.
Okay.
So when I have a new group of students, I tell them what is my philosophy of education. Now, I'll say it here. Maybe we could even clip this, so I'll go full screen. Yeah, for this one?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, crap. And I'm supposed to make it so there's a little more continuity, and let's turn off this and this. There we go. Okay, so here we are. So my philosophy, this is David Logan's personal philosophy of education, and it is as follows. I think that there is, generally speaking, a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things. And I think everybody has to find their own way of doing things. I have my way of doing things. Some things are technically wrong. I like to think that most of it's correct because I've, made a living as a composer for 30 years now. So it's got to be majority part has to be correct. Okay. My job and the philosophy of education that I have is the whole function and purpose of what I do as an educator is to help you find your way. I show you this is the right way. This is the wrong way. This is David Logan's way that only works for David Logan. Let's find the way that works exactly for you, the student. That's my job, is to guide you to finding the way that works specifically for you, because David Logan's way is not going to be the right way for you. Maybe you want to learn just everything done the right way, the only correct way according to science, and going back to Bach and analyzing everything. So that is my philosophy of education. And here's the final point I usually make. I tell them, 90% of what I'm going to teach you in this class, you can learn it on YouTube. So then why are you here? Why even take this class? Why not just go to YouTube? And the answer is my critical feedback that is not based on my subjective opinion. Oh, that was cool. It is something that I base on my objective experience being in the industry for 30 years, based on the comments that I've heard from video game producers and what they've said about various tracks to me. That's where my comments are coming from. YouTube cannot give you any comments. Now, there's a comment section in YouTube. I'm very well aware of that. But what are you going to get there? Is somebody going to take the time to write, 3 pages trying to help you? No, they're going to say, that was really cool, dude. Dude, that's epic. Wow, so cool, man. Or at best you might get, I don't know about the drums. Maybe you should try XLN. That's about what you're going to get. So I don't know. Does that sound like a thing? Like a good philosophy of education? I think so.
Yeah, that last 10% matters.
Matters. Big time. because no one can give you any of that. Like that, only somebody who's done it can say to you, well,
Right.
look, from my experience, I can tell you right away that this would not work, and
Right.
here's why it won't work. And again, it's not based on my opinions. It's based on my experience in the industry,
Right.
So, so that's it. Yeah, there's a right way, a wrong way, my way, and my job is to help you find your way. That's it. You know, and the way I help you find your way is also based again on my experience, right?
Right.
I've done television, I've done advertising music, I've done feature films, I've done AAA games, I've done iPhone games, I've done web-based games, I've done casino games, I've done every kind of games you can imagine, and every kind of media actually, um, and that's where the experience is coming from. So
Right.
I don't know. Next topic.
Uh,
We kind of beat this
yeah,
one to
we spent.
death, I think.
Yeah, I think we did. I don't know. The other topics are kind of intense too. I don't think we can get through them in
Okay,
15, 20
or we
minutes.
can
Um,
maybe ask our lovely audience if they have any specific questions and or some comments based
Not World
on.
Cup, but David has done the Olympics.
I have I done?
I don't
Yes,
know.
I've
I
done
don't
the
know if that was the
Olympics.
context.
I
Yeah.
have. I have done not just any Olympics. 2004 Summer Olympics for Nike, no less, with Wyden
Where were the
Kennedy.
2004 Olympics?
I don't even remember. I don't know. But it
Let's
was
find
with
out.
Wyden Kennedy, which is one of the largest, certainly one of the most
Oh, Athens.
prestigious ad
That
agency.
to this day, the best lighting of the Olympic torch was it Athens or was it Spain? I
Okay.
think it was Athens. Which one was it where the guy, I think that was
Oh, I think it was
Spain.
Spain. Yeah, where he did the arrow.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Did you see the behind the scenes though? It was all camera
No.
angle trickery.
Okay.
The
I
arrow
don't
never
care.
landed really.
It
They
didn't?
just, no, they filmed it so that no matter what, as long as he aimed above it, eventually in the distance, you would see it going away from looking down to up. And they literally timed it. So, yeah. Sorry, did I just ruin that for you?
Well, there goes Santa Claus
Well,
and the
you know
Easter
what
Bunny.
though? That's according to YouTube. It could have just been an AI generated video. So who
Oh
knows if
shit.
it's true. But, so I've done it all. Yeah, I've been there, I've done that. And yeah, I've done literally everything, yeah, that you can imagine. And as far as advertising goes, Summer Olympics, Nike, I mean, that's essentially AAA of advertising world. And it was a national spot, right?
Right.
US national. So it wasn't some regional local Nike store. It was a
Yeah.
national and featuring Marion Jones, who before they found out about her
Famous
steroids
Marion
was
Jones.
the
Right.
biggest track star, in fact.
Yeah.
And there was another guy, I forgot his name. He was equally amazing. And then the thing is, it was so sad when everybody found out about that. And I got sad. It
Yeah.
sort of took a little bit of the wind out of my sails. Like, oh man, I could have name dropped Marion Jones, but now people will just look at me like,
Well, listen,
okay, that you're
you
proud of
know,
that.
22
Anyway,
years later, we still know Marion Jones's name.
we still know. Well, that's true. We do know her name, I
Yeah.
guess. So anyway, regardless, I guess the point being, yeah, I've been there, done that, and everything that I give feedback for is based on all of that experience that I have. You know,
Right.
and look, there's lots of other composers with a lot more experience than me, but I've done enough. I've been around the block, and I've been beaten up quite a few times by Big Lou, you know, and
Right.
I'm here to tell the story. I I always think of the Robert Duvall, um, the scene in the diner. Oh God, you know. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but I've been through 2 world wars. I've led hundreds of men into battle and loved only one woman. It was this wonderful monologue he did while he was about to beat the shit out of this guy. So, I'm David Logan, and I've done 10 AAA video game titles, and I have loved only 2 Super Jupiters and sold both of them and then bought a different one back 25 years later. If you know the monologue, it's quite funny. Anyway, so yeah, I guess, look, my advice to young people and my advice to, anybody that wants to do this professionally, and it is literally the same advice that every single, anyone who's made it, Hans Zimmer to Brad Pitt to you name it, Steven Spielberg, they all say the same thing. Just never quit. If you never quit, there's only one thing that can happen to you, which is you'll succeed eventually. And that's it. If you never quit and you put the hours in, and, get your head out of YouTube once in a while and try to find the base sandwich mixing tip. All right, Phoebe, glad you're using that. Glad that one works for you. But yeah, I mean, just, try to find a mentor, try to find an internship, and don't give up on it no matter what. But start off by asking realistically, what are my chances here of actually earning, right? And that's why, Bobby, you and I have talked at length about how that's going to work for you, right? Because the last thing in the world I want to do with any intern is take advantage of them. And that's why with Emanuele, I was like super clear, like I'm going to give you a 1-year shot.
Well, I don't even think, there are you can be a hobbyist, but if you want to be better, you need to grow. And I don't think people can grow by themselves.
That's right. And look, here, let me explain the trade-off, because I think so many people don't realize it. They somehow think, I'm an intern for David Logan, therefore I should be paid. I'm entitled to getting paid. I'm working hard. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of my studio. Really get the fuck out. Because you have no idea. If you don't understand that my taking time out of my life to critique your music and help you grow in your career, that my hours that's not an equal trade for you organizing my patch cables and typing out some labels for me. Like, I can do that in my sleep.
Is our time.
What's that?
The most valuable thing we have is time.
It's our time. So if I'm, and I do everything 10 to 1. You do 10 hours for me, I'll give you 1 hour private lesson. I charge a lot for a private lesson, and I don't always take students, so I guess, like, if you can't recognize that you can work in here for free, you can mix your record here for free, you can sit there for like 8 hours and tweak patch cables for free. You can work with a hardware real Eventide H3000 and get that tactile. Like, if that's not valuable to you and you think you deserve to get paid 25 euros an hour, get the fuck out of my studio. You just have no idea of what value is. And it means that you don't value what I'm giving, right? That's really what it means. Now, Emanuele is now, he's the top boss of Orb. He's my boss, man. But he recognized the value. And after 1 year, I told him, listen, this is not going to go into anything paying for you. I'm just giving you a heads up on that you're never really going to be a part of Orb. And he was like, but because I told him when he started the internship, I said, look, if after 1 year, I don't think you're good enough that you're going to be earning money, I'll tell you so you don't waste your time with me. And he was like, cool. After 1 year, sure enough, I said, hey, listen, why don't you have a seat? Let's talk. He's like, yeah, what's up? I promised you after 1 year, I'd, tell you, and I'm telling you, you're never going to be a part of Orb. I'm never going to pay you. And he was like, but why? Sort of surprised. And I said, well, you're lazy. And he's like, And you know what his answer was? That's true. Actually, you're right. I'm like, I know I'm right. I don't need you to tell me I'm right. It's obvious. I said, you don't, pay a lot of attention to the finer details. And that's what this whole job is about. And he said, but listen, I'm really getting a lot out of this. Can I still be your intern? I was like, 100%. Flash forward 7 more years or 6 more years after that. And we became partners. And that was like, can't even remember the exact year that was, but it feels like forever ago. But the point is, he recognized the value. He recognized that him working for free, 10 hours a week for me, gave him way, way more than it gave me. And it's true. It did give him more.
And it's something he couldn't have learned from YouTube.
Never. Impossible to learn. Yeah. And I literally taught him everything about sound design. And I would argue he's a better sound designer than I am today. He's eclipsed me even. So, which is, it's pretty amazing. So yeah, I'm the guy who made the butt bounce after all. You know what's crazy on I just saw the trailer came into my YouTube from like last year, and they were sort of going through like, Pac-Man repack, blah, 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 blah. And now with my super butt bounce, and then you hear they featured that in the trailer, and I'm like, gotcha. I did that shit. Well, not the super butt bounce, but they layered it on my original butt bounce. So anyway, look, Bobby, I think, that the very big problem today is young people do not understand value. They think because I want it, I'm entitled. And the number two jobs that people want to do, which were never jobs before.
I know.
YouTuber, influencer, right? So like those are the top 2 choices. So wait, to be an influencer, don't you kind of have to have done something?
Not anymore, man.
Well, I guess to be a social influencer, maybe not. You can just be a Kardashian. But if you want to influence somebody to buy a plugin, like people buy the Chris Lord Algae plugins because he's mixed some of the biggest bands ever, right?
Yeah, so Venus Theory is just a YouTuber, right?
Well, that's true, but he's got talent.
I don't particularly. I heard he did the soundtrack to one of the last, I want to say, Bethesda games. I'm probably wrong. I don't think it was Bethesda, but and I listened to the soundtrack, and it was
mediocre.
It did, in my opinion, it didn't fit the game.
Okay.
And I think that
so you know what? This goes back to one of our other conversations about how A&R departments have been completely replaced, and how Justin Bieber got signed not for his talent, but for his views on YouTube. So I think that similar thing is happening now. So Venus Theory did not become an influencer because he was an experienced video game composer. He's an influencer because he built his channel from nothing. And I think this is now what's happening is we're getting into this. And so it's no accident that his recommendation for me turned out to be a shit recommendation for that World 3 bundle. So I don't know, it's, so this is the problem now, is that we have a culture of so-called experts like Venus Theory. I do respect him. I think he's very smart and pragmatic, but we have this whole...
expert used to be somebody who put in their 10,000 hours professionally, right? An expert used to be somebody who had to prove themselves financially.
And now it's somebody who can get along with the algorithm on YouTube and know how to tweak it. Exactly. And know how to cheat the system.
Right. Yeah. So now you can become an expert as long as you have 1 million views. You are an expert.
That's right.
Everybody considers you an expert. This is who sees 1 million views or 1 million followers. Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about.
So
that's not true.
Going back to our sort of community note thing, or like a score pointing system, do we really trust Venus Theory's opinions for recommendations for video game composers, based on his unique experience as a game composer? The answer would be no. Would we trust, this guy, David Logan? Well, his name is in the booklet for some really big franchises and some really big people. Probably, yeah. He's worked directly with Disney and Marvel, and
Right.
He's worked with Namco and Activision and Sony and Microsoft directly. Um, so yeah, I would tend to trust his experience more. Now, does he have as much experience in AAA as like, Jesper Kidd or Tom Salta or Bill Brown? No, but I would still trust his opinion because, he's been there and done it. And
Right.
the thing is, I think that this is a really interesting point. I think that people like me could really fill in the gap of knowledge on YouTube. Why? Because a guy like, maybe I can't speak for him, but I'm going to assume a guy like Jesper Kidd and some of these really big, Tom Salta, AAA game composers, I don't think they have time to run a YouTube channel and make
Of
tutorial
course not.
videos and right. And
Right.
so somebody like me,
That's
I
a
do
full-time
have.
job.
What?
That's a full-time job
Right.
to
But
do
the point
YouTube videos
is,
once
now
a
we
week.
brought Woody on, right? We have a
Right.
new guy, by the way, who eventually will join us on the stream. Um, so we brought Woody on, right? So we can sort of build it out over time, right? Because he's going to
Yeah.
take some of that video editing off of your hands. And
Right.
it is possible that just based on you and I and our conversations, that we could build a successful YouTube channel as long as Woody is doing his job. No?
Right.
So, there's
Yeah, but it takes a
there's a
team.
middle
Yeah.
ground, I suppose,
Right.
between
Yeah.
hackery and so like obviously I'm not a hack, but I'm not as successful as some of the big AAA guys, right?
Well, there are some very successful hacks.
Well,
John Williams comes to mind.
and
Well,
Hans Zimmer, let's throw him in the mix as
right.
well.
Sure.
May as well throw him in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, JT, internship is one way into the room. I'll tell you
One
another very successful method that I know that I've recommended to students, because that's their number one question. Like, how do I actually get into the business? So the number one method is, yes, intern for somebody who is doing it that you can learn from, where there's career opportunities. So like I said, when Emanuele started with me in 2017, I think he started, 2016 even. I think it's been almost 10 years I've known him. Right. There was a way of him working his way up slowly, and I was honest with him and I told him it's never going to work out. And I ate my words on the day I said, let's be partners. And I said, remember when I told you you would never be a part of Orb Soundworks? He's like, I remember. Well, congratulations. You've proved me completely wrong. You are now my partner in Orb Soundworks. It was a very nice moment, but he earned it, right? So JT, that is one way into the room, is to volunteer your services from someone you feel you can learn from. Because even after the 1 year, when I was essentially trying to fire him and tell him it's not going to work out long term, he didn't give up. He didn't quit. He said, can I still stay? The second way that you can get into this business, which is a very effective and faster, because not everybody's going to intern for, 3 to 6 years before being offered a partnership, right? Go to game jams. So if you go to itch.io, there's a whole indie game dev community out there, and get involved in it, offer to do music and sound for free. You're still working for free in the end. That's the
Essentially,
catch.
find other people.
But you will find other, exactly. And the most important thing, you will build a relationship with those people. And that relationship, once they get hired at Ubisoft as like a junior level designer, and the producer's like, yeah, we just lost our composer. Man, what are we going to do? That's when, whoever you're working with on that team might say, well, I know this, really young, talented musician named Phoebe Joy Music, and we should call her. And then because Phoebe Joy went to a game jam, right? And so, yeah, so that is it's faster too, right? So if you were to do like, I don't know, 20 game jams a year, and you're working with 20 small game dev teams, it becomes a numbers game. It's a lottery system at that point, because enough of those people are going to go on, get jobs in the industry. And if you have a database and you keep their email and their cell phone and you contact them every 4 months, so 3 times a year like clockwork. How's it going? Just wanted to stay in touch. Are you doing anything interesting in gaming? Do you ever need sound? Just wanted to keep the relationship alive. If you do that, I guarantee you within 2 to 3 years, you will be working as a game composer. How can I guarantee this with such certainty? Because you can't imagine how many times over the years I've been contacted. Logan, thank you so much because your recommendation literally got me hired at this game studio. I've had it, like at least once a year, I'll get that email, And here's the reality that most people don't know. They don't know how difficult it is. Like, for the amount of people that try to make a living, and when I say a living, I'm talking about a living wage, meaning support a family, own a car, and have a decent place to live and not struggle for grocery debt and not have credit card debt. That's what I define as a living wage. In order to have a living wage in your art, I put the odds roughly, I don't know, it's like about 0.2%. So it's like, 20% of 1% who actually succeed from trying to earn a living wage. It's one of the most, look, I always joke. Here's 2 jokes I'll tell you, okay? One is not very funny, but I say that becoming a paid artist is a more difficult job than becoming the president of the United States of America. So you have a greater chance of becoming a US president than you do of earning a living as an art. So obviously that's supposed to be funny. The other one is this is years ago. I mean, I don't do much social functions anymore, but if I'm at a social function, like a dinner party and, oh, David, what do you do for your work? I say, oh, I'm a bank robber. Oh, I say, no, but seriously, I actually rob banks because it is a job and somebody has to do that job. So, and I'm very good at it. And oh, you're so funny. And then I say, well, okay, obviously I'm joking, but when I tell you my real job, it will seem even more funny to you. And they're all fascinated at that point. The whole table's looking at me. And then they're like, well, what is it? And I say, I make music for a living. I actually compose music for video games, film, and television, and I get paid to do it. And then they laugh even harder, like, oh, you really are so funny. No, really, what do you do? And I'm like, no, that's really actually my job, Because, teaching, is not a big moneymaker, Teaching is that sort of one thing that you do that if you were like lost every single gig ever, you could take on more hours and then you could, barely survive, So it's just one of those things you do to protect yourself. It's like an insurance policy, but I do it because I love it. I genuinely love teaching. It's a great pleasure for me, but I only, take small amount of hours. I don't teach a lot. So yeah, that's the reality, guys. It's a very small amount of people that actually function, and functionally earn
we can end
an
it
actual living.
On a hopeful note, and to say,
okay, hopeful note. Let's think about that.
Find people that can help you.
Or find people who can help you.
That will, I think that's the simplest way to say it, no matter what.
And everybody in this stream knows that I'm a helpful person, and which means you can always come to this stream and you can always ask me for help. Even if you are struggling emotionally with depression or anything, this is a place where we talk about our feelings. We talk about life. I know some people who are on my stream don't appreciate that, and I don't really fucking care, because there are people out there who are hurting, really hurting, and they come here once a week to just sort of know they're not alone in the world. And so that's why we talk about feelings and emotions and anything that we damn well please on this stream, okay? There's no rules except politics. No. Religion, definitely no.
Religion and politics.
But depression, struggling, the artist's struggle is part of the reason I streamed in the first place, because I struggle a lot. So So we are offering our help here, not
Yeah.
professionally, like we're not licensed therapists or anything, but if you're struggling, like that time with Meekin, right? He was really having a hard time. And by the way, he sent me a whole bunch of personal voice messages on Discord thanking me, and you, Bobby, as well. Like, you guys were so amazingly supportive of me, and it really made a difference to me. And I want to thank you sincerely for doing that. You know,
You
it
never know
really,
when somebody just needs a little bit, just a couple of
exactly.
nice words, you
They
know?
just need a little tiny little bit. And if you give them that little bit, which is why we're very welcoming and open, and a nice community where people can come and ask, for a little bit of advice if they're having a hard time in life, for example, like, we're here,
Right.
man. So, and if any of you do want to ask me a question about career advice or professionalism, or maybe you want to ask a technical question to Bobby, I'm sure Bobby would answer. Um, we'll do that. And if any of you have friends that are struggling to become composers, tell them to come here and ask questions. We'll answer the questions, no problem. No. So there, is that
Yeah.
hopeful enough? Is that hopeful enough, Bobby?
Very,
Very
very.
hopeful. There's a really
Yeah.
good, um, yeah. There's a place where you, because you know what, Bobby, my whole life
Listen,
I was
I wrote
alone.
it down. All I have left is positivity. That's
That's
my,
right.
that's
That's right.
that's that's it.
That's it. And that makes a huge difference, by the way, for everybody. If you have two things in your life, I guarantee your life, you will not suffer. Well, you'll suffer, but not as much. Positivity and gratitude. Have
Yeah.
gratitude. You know,
Right.
have gratitude, man. That's one of the most important things. Look, I'll tell you that my entire life, I always felt alone. And part of the sincerity and the passion that comes from me, especially about helping other people, through my stream and building these little communities, because I never felt I ever had one, ever. And I've always been a nurturer. I'll tell you a beautiful, positive story, very quick, too. I must have been maybe 8 years old, on my way to school, and I found a $20 bill. Now, in 1978, that may as well have been $1 million. So after school, the kids the kindergarten children had this sort of area fenced off. I went to the store and I came back with two giant grocery bags filled with chocolate bars, potato chips, soda, candy, licorice. And I walked into that play area and I said, "Hey guys, do you want to be a part of my gang?" And they're like, "Well, what do we have to do to be in your gang?" And I said, "Just help me eat all of this candy." And we sat there for like 30 minutes polishing off chocolate chips, and I left that day feeling I had done something that no one ever did for me. And I felt so good at 8 years old, and I felt like I was not alone. And it's a heartbreaking story because my childhood was extremely painful and lonely, terribly lonely. And so, I guess in some weird way, I like to hope that in a classroom or on this stream or when I intern somebody, I'm carrying those bags. Is that positive enough? I think it is. Because that's
Yeah.
the spirit of who I am. I want to help
Yeah.
and give, man, because it was tough for
It's
me,
a better
man.
world when people feel that way.
It is. You pay it forward, man. You find $20. You don't keep it and buy shit for yourself. You spoil a bunch of kids that, their parents are, working extra late. And because I went after school, because there was like a
Hmm.
the kindergarten became like a daycare. So there was literally, I was just alone with a bunch of kids. Like, dude, there was no adult supervision in the 1970s. Okay. Like none. Cause like I just sat there, nobody, no adult checking in, like, are the kids safe, But also we didn't lock our doors back then, not, I mean, we did because the area we lived in, but a lot of people
Right.
didn't lock their doors in the 1970s. I think that was one of the last times, maybe.
I think because in the 90s, I remember TV commercials, it would come on at like 10 p.m. and it would say, it's 10 o'clock at night. Do you
Do you
know
know
where
where
your
your
kids
children?
are?
Yeah. right?
like,
Because a lot of kids started disappearing. You got the milk carton phenomena, right?
right. That was
Like,
crazy.
yeah, the world changed, man. The world
Forgot
changed.
about the
There were
milk carton.
never
Yeah,
school shootings. Never. That was never a thing when I was, nobody was afraid to go to school. There were no school shootings. Like, the world has changed, man, drastically. Wait, aren't we supposed to end on a positive note? All right.
Positivity. That's all we have
Me
left.
with my
Anybody
trash
who wants
bags,
positivity, just come by.
my 2 grocery bags filled with candy
Right.
and Coke and chips, and I'm here to help anyone that wants to be helped. That's my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is a positive note. And yeah, man. Positivity and gratitude. If you have both of those, it goes a long way, man. It really does. Because people will feel that coming from you, right? That you don't take them for granted, you know? Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to leave it, huh?
I think so. Positivity, man. It's a good thing. All right, guys. Well, it's that time. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
And let's give a shout out to Manuele also. Thank you for running Orb. Special thank you and special shout out to Woody for helping us in our mission. Where are we here?
Spread positivity.
1 hour, 36 minutes. We should tell Woody. We gave him a shout out at 1 hour, 36. So thank you, Woody. We do appreciate it. And so, what else? That's it. Like I always say,
Good to go, man.
I think the purpose of life is to find some purpose in life. And I think the meaning of life is to find some meaning in life. Take care, everybody.